Welcome back. You're watching Dukascopy TV. I'm Darren McDermott. Well, we've all heard about the immense pressure Swiss banks have been under due to the new regulations. Now, Swiss banking rules date back as far as the Middle Ages, but events such as the UBS tax scandal put Swiss banks under huge pressure. Now, I'm joined today by Kevin Stringer from Webster University. Welcome, Kevin. So first of all, share with us your opinions on the new regulations and of course this new surveillance society that we live in.
Well, it's a very concerning development for a couple of reasons. Regulations increase costs for the financial industry and banks in particular. The question is who's going to bear those costs. It'll typically be passed along to the customers, so bank clients will bear the ultimate burden of these regulations. I think the whole question about enforcement of regulations is incorrect. It's placing the onus on banks. The governments are effectively outsourcing this job of tax enforcement, regulation enforcement onto the banks, who, if they don't adhere to the regulations, they are penalized criminally or civilly, particularly the case with the United States. Last but not least, I would say that we've got to rethink the way we look at civil society and the protection of individual rights and private information. Again, banks are being required to look quite deeply into people's personal details. I question whether that is really correct in democratic, liberal societies where we really say individual rights are important.
Okay, and yeah, of course, with Facebook and all social media, it's making it even harder to keep your privacy intact. Now moving on to looking at how other countries took advantage of Swiss bank pressure Swiss banks were put under, such as Singapore. Now they ran in and they change everything to make their banks more attractive. So what exact steps did they take?
I think Singapore is clearly taken advantage of a market opportunity in regards to Switzerland, but Singapore offers many of the same characteristics that Switzerland provides to its banking customers. Stable government, high-end economy with a lot of knowledge workers who are working in the industry. So I view it was already a well-established financial center who has attracted business given the problems that Switzerland and other European countries have had. So one point is I think that the inherent characteristics of Singapore as a financial center were already there. They now can take advantage of this market opportunity. So I don't think they've done anything necessarily different. Okay. However, their characteristics were in place to move into this position. That's point one. Point two, Singapore has been the depository for Asian money. They've built a critical mass of wealth coming from places like Indonesia, China, the ethnic Chinese in Asia, Thailand. They already were quite large, and now we see attracting clients who have perhaps been in Switzerland that now want to diversify, move their money there, and also to feel perhaps more protected when it comes to this whole question of intrusion into private data and regulations. Three, Singapore has another advantage that Switzerland doesn't. It's geographically and geopolitically relevant. The United States has been quite critical of Switzerland, less critical of Singapore. I think there are some questions to ask. Singapore is very essential for the US military. There's naval presence there. They occupy a very strategic position in Asia, and they have a slightly different political weight, if you want to call it that, in regards to the United States and some other countries. So while tax evasion, tax issues, regulations might be important, they have a different level of political power, diplomatic power towards the United States or other Western European countries than Switzerland. So I think those three areas have contributed the inherent characteristics, this critical mass of Asian money already in Singapore, and a geopolitical relevance have all contributed to Singapore really moving in front of Switzerland as a financial center. And that's attractive for investors, both large and small. Okay,
do you think there could be any possible problems, issues that could arise in Singapore as a result of it now becoming the new hub?
It's speculative, but certainly the Western European and North American countries that are very keen on regulation, they're seeking their tax revenues. They want people to pay their taxes. There's an assumption that if you have an offshore account, somehow that's illegal, which is not the case. Singapore well could have risk in this direction. I think, though, that they are quite adept politically and diplomatically, and they're certainly aware of this. Singapore has what I would say is a very proper country strategy. I'm sure they've considered these risks in the development of their financial center. And they have weight in Asia, and this will be important for countries like the United States.
Okay, so moving forward, looking at the future, what to expect, are we going to continue the path we're on, or are we going to will we have to become a little bit more relaxed, or will it completely affect us if we don't relax a little bit?
I fear we'll continue along the path. World economy is not really improved. Countries like the United States, Germany, UK, they're keen on accessing what they perceive as their tax revenues that are somewhere offshore, and regulations, I think, will actually increase given this situation we find ourselves in. It implies more cost for Swiss banks. There are several studies that have been published that will have talked about these costs will result in smaller banks either going out of business or being consolidated or acquired by other banks. It'll put a lot of pressure on the industry here and potentially level the playing field. You mentioned Singapore as being a competitive financial center. There are others that are striving to attract those money flows that might be diverged from Switzerland due to perceived or real regulatory issues.
Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, that is it for right now, but we have plenty more interviews coming your way, so do stay tuned. Goodbye for now.